Hey everyone, how's it going? Covey here with another video, and today I'm going to be talking about Greta Gerwig's Barbie. Now, this is a bit of a experimental video style for me. I don't necessarily have a full fleshed out written script in front of me. I basically just have a bunch of notes that I wanted to talk about, so this is going to be a little bit of a rougher, unpolished, kind of hot take video rather than like a deep analysis and like scripted thing that I normally would do on this channel. But to be perfectly honest, it takes a lot of time and effort to write a script and edit a video and package it all together in the way that I would really like to do. And Barbie is a film I watched last week and really enjoyed and didn't necessarily want to make a video about or write too deeply about. And I'll talk a little bit about why. But I figured since everyone is talking about it, still even weeks later after the movie came out, and that a lot of people are having their interpretations of it. Oh, hello, honey. Do you want to come talk about Barbie? Since a lot of people are talking about the movie and having their interpretations of it, I figured I might as well throw out my takes into the ring. And while I'm working in between other projects, just kind of throw together this quick and dirty video just to get my thoughts out. You know, this is an experiment. I want to see how it goes. So, also let me know in the comments whether you like this sort of thing, whether you would want to see more of this from me, or if you would just prefer to watch the more polished scripted stuff. That's totally cool too. Yeah, just let me know down below and I will take that into account. But when I mentioned that I watched the movie and didn't necessarily think that I was going to talk about it or write about it, basically that was because I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was perfectly fine, but I didn't necessarily think it was like the big revolutionary feminist epic the way that I think that some people did see the movie, which I think is, it's totally fine if you saw it that way. But the reason why I say that I think the film was good, but not necessarily amazing, I think it has more to do with me personally and my own preferences and my own tastes than it does with the movie itself. Like, I think the film was, perfectly functional. It was entertaining. It was fun, thoughtful. It was structured really well. It was artistic. It was performed really well. It was presented really well, obviously. But like for me personally, it just didn't necessarily go as deep as I would want it to. As someone who myself is a non-binary person who has explored and thought about gender frankly way more than the average person, and as someone who has really thought deeply about gender roles and expectations, especially within a patriarchal society, more specifically a cis heteronormative patriarchal society, I feel like there's a lot more that this film probably could have done within like the pretense of its concept, but I didn't necessarily expect it to go that much deeper just because it is a mainstream film and, it's meant to capture a really wide audience. So of course it's not going to be too radical or too complex for something that, the average person needs to wrap their head around and grasp. Seeing as how even this film, as kind of basic as I thought it was, even how that drummed up this ire and hatred from the right-wing misogynist crowd, obviously like it was pretty radical to some people, even if it wasn't to me. So I'm not going to deny that either. You know what I mean? Clearly the film accomplished what it wanted to accomplish despite whatever my opinions about it are. But what I will say is that one of my favorite parts of the movie, honestly, was the ending and the last scene and that last line that we got from Barbie. I thought that last line perfectly tied together the entire film and kind of encapsulated the main core theme of the movie and the story and what it was trying to say. And I've seen a lot of people talk about this last scene and talk about this last line, but I didn't necessarily see anyone have the same interpretation as me. And like, I don't know, like, I've seen a lot of people who were really confused about the last line, who said that it kind of came out of nowhere and they didn't expect it, or some people who just thought it was like a funny joke, which, I mean, it was played off as a joke, right? But the way that I feel that it tied together the entire film was pretty brilliant to me, and I feel like not a lot of people saw that. So that's kind of what I wanted to focus on in this video. You know, there's a lot I could be talking about this movie, but I really just want to focus on the core theme and that last line and how it kind of ties everything together. And if you are looking at the timestamp of this video and being like, gosh, how long does it take to talk about one line of a movie? Well, I'll just say that this is the last line of the movie. So obviously I have to talk about the entire film in order to talk about the last line. But also, if you like don't have the patience and don't want to sit here and listen to me kind of incoherently ramble about the Barbie movie and just want to get like that one take, I will go ahead and say it right up front here, the TLDR version. But, you know, if you could just do me a huge favor on your way out and hit the like button, you know, just drop that like and then click off the video. That's totally fine with me. If you don't want to sit here and watch the entire thing, I would really appreciate it. All right, thanks, peace. But anyway, this last line of the movie where Barbie walks into her gynecologist's office and says that she's here for an appointment, I thought was both really funny and really brilliant. Such a clever way to tie together the entire theme of the film. Anyway, sorry, to get to the point. So basically the film is a coming of age story where Barbie's transformation from doll, or like an idea of a doll, to a full out fleshed out human being, that magical transformation is meant to symbolize the journey of becoming an adult, of specifically going from girlhood to womanhood, like that journey of adulthood. And the last line where Barbie says, "I'm here to see my gynecologist," is a double entendre where one part of it is obviously meant to be a joke and a sort of callback to the scene earlier in the film where Barbie is talking to the dudes and she's talking about how she doesn't have any genitals, right? So obviously that's the fantasy portion of it, that she is a doll with no genitals and now she goes to a human being who has genitals. So that's kind of the surface level meaning of what that is. And then the metaphorical meaning is this is meant to represent her transformation into an adult. And I mean, like, just think about it for a second. When you are a person with a vagina and you grow to adulthood, what is one of the major things that you have to start doing? You know, as soon as you turn 21, you got to go get your pap smear, right? Like, that's just kind of a marker, an event marker almost, to now being an adult. You know, there are so few things I feel like that signify that, yes, you are now an adult, regardless of what your gender is. You know, different life events could be seen as you are now an adult, right? Whether it's like graduating school or getting your first job or getting married, whatever. There's all these markers that signify like, yes, you are now an adult. And there's so few of those, right? But one of them very clearly is needing to go to the gynecologist and needing to go to the doctor and have regular doctor's appointments for your different body parts. That's just unfortunately part of being an adult. And so, yeah, that is what that last line really means. Like, she is now an adult. She's going to have to go to the gynecologist. She has to take care of her body just as any grown woman or adult has to do. And I do want to kind of talk a little bit about like how the film sets up this metaphor of coming of age. First of all, let's talk about Barbie Land. Barbie Land is a representation of girlhood, essentially. And I will say that it is a very specific version of girlhood, right? It's like Greta Gerwig's thesis of like, this is what girlhood is. And I do think that like this idea of Barbie representing girlhood is a pretty brilliant connection, just because obviously for those of us who kind of grew up in that era, the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, when Barbie was really big, Barbie was a really big part of our childhoods, right? A really big part of our girlhood. And so having Barbie and Barbie Land represent this version of girlhood is pretty clever, in my opinion. And what I mean by this version of girlhood is, you know, Barbie really represents this kind of like girl power version of girlhood, right? Like the kind of hashtag girl boss. You can do anything you set your mind to. You can dream big and, you know, accomplish anything as long as you're working hard and being kind, and you will be successful, right? Like this is this idealized version of girlhood that Barbie and Barbie Land represents. And it's funny as well, the way that Barbie Land as like a societal structure is set up as well, because it's also kind of meant to represent this inverse of real world society, in the sense that, you know, real world obviously functions under patriarchy, where men are on top and women are kind of treated as second-class citizens. And then in Barbie Land, it's the inverse, where the Barbies are all in power and, you know, have all the say and influence in the societal structure. And the Kens are literally second-class citizens, where they don't even have housing, they don't even have jobs, they don't have like any real sway or influence in the society. And it's really meant to be like an inverse mirror of real world. There's lots of like clever imagery in Barbie Land as well that reference stories like The Wizard of Oz, and all of those sort of symbolic imageries are there to underscore this idea that Barbie Land is childhood, and that leaving Barbie Land, following the yellow brick road, is a symbol for growing into adulthood, of coming of age. And that leaving of Barbie Land and growing up is something that two characters in the movie do, right? Barbie and Ken. Before I get to Barbie, I do briefly want to talk about Ken and his journey, because I think like this movie had a lot of really interesting things to say about both girlhood and boyhood, right? And what it means to grow up as a boy into a man under patriarchy as well. And that is really highlighted through Ken's story. And Ken, you know, leaves Barbie Land with Barbie, and he has his entire self-worth wrapped up in this idea of like being Barbie's boyfriend, right? That is his entire meaning of existence in the first part of the film. And when he leaves Barbie Land and goes to the real world, and that's his growing up, and he discovers what patriarchy is, it does sort of like pollute his mind. It's very reflective of real life, the way that young men can often be radicalized towards misogyny or violence due to the expectation of what it means to be a man under patriarchy. And what I think is also kind of where the nuance of the film comes in is that Ken actually does struggle to get real power, right? Like, yeah, he's taken seriously and respected for the first time when he comes to the real world and like people see him as a man instead of as a Ken. But, you know, he's still not able to like become a doctor or get a high paying job in like the corporate world or whatever, right? And he needs to get a master's degree. And, you know, there's that one character that's like, oh no, we're doing patriarchy, but we're just hiding it better, right? And so that's where I think like some of the nuance that like Gerwig and, oh gosh, I forgot her husband's name, but I know that he also co-wrote the movie. So I'm sure that he had some influence in kind of this idea of manhood and boyhood as well, right? And so Ken learns about patriarchy, learns that men kind of have this entitlement to be respected, but is not necessarily able to fully achieve it. And that's where his like self-esteem issues really come in, right? Like he can't be Barbie's boyfriend. He can't be like this all-powerful guy. So like, what is he, right? And that's when he kind of turns to misogyny and violence and overpowering people, right? Like he wants to be better than the other Kens. And I think that that is very reflective of how men can turn to anger or lashing out due to this like kind of crushing expectation of manhood under patriarchy. It's only when Ken can like fully accept that he can be enough without Barbie, without the like, you know, powerful titles or anything like that. Like he can just be Ken, and that is enough, you know? So I feel like that is like a really beautiful kind of message to boys and men who struggle with the expectations of what it means to be a man under patriarchy. You can just be yourself and love who you are, and that is enough. And then when it comes to Barbie and her journey throughout the movie, she has this idea of girlhood, that women are powerful, that girls can be anything. And then, of course, when she comes to the real world, when she's face to face with what reality really is, she is obviously shocked to find out that girl power is not as much of a thing in the real world as it is in Barbie land. And I think that that realization of, oh, it's actually really hard to be a woman under patriarchy, I think like that is a struggle that the film is highlighting. It's highlighting the struggle of, we know that patriarchy exists, so how do we even exist now that we know that everyone hates women? And that's kind of where Sasha's character comes into play, right? Like she's representing that kind of transitional phase between girlhood and womanhood, where she's like now starting to wake up to this idea of patriarchy, but she still hasn't quite figured out how to function within patriarchy. You know, she lashes out in anger. She's really just hurt by society, right? She's like, everyone hates women, men hate women, women hate women. And she kind of just like lashes out because of that, because she hasn't quite figured out what it means to fight back against that. And like, is it even worth fighting back against that, right? And Gloria is like this maternal figure both to Sasha and to Barbie, where she is like essentially teaching both of them that yes, patriarchy exists, and yes, it is hard to be a woman under patriarchy, and it's like literally impossible, right? Like that's what her whole monologue at the end is about, is like being a woman and trying to meet all of the expectations of being a woman under a patriarchy is literally impossible. And so the answer to that, right, is to basically acknowledge the power of patriarchy. And by acknowledging its existence, you essentially rob it of its power by saying that, oh yeah, it actually is impossible to be a perfect woman under patriarchy. Therefore, I'm not going to try, right? I'm not even going to try to be perfect. I'm just going to be myself and do what I want to do. And the haters are going to hate, right? Like that is basically the experience of being a woman. And that's what the movie is about. And so as Barbie learns that she can be a adult woman under patriarchy while not having to conform to the rigid expectations of what it means to be a woman, gotta have no cellulite, you gotta be perfectly beautiful, you gotta be smart, you gotta be an astronaut, a pilot, a freaking doctor, right? Like all these sort of things, a perfect mother, right? Like all these ideas of what it means to be a perfect woman, and that there is no right way to be a woman. And that's kind of what Barbie has to learn as she grows into adulthood. And then as she learns that lesson of she just has to be herself, that is when she's able to complete her transformation into adulthood. And that's when she gets rewarded with her genitals and goes to the gynecologist. And that's basically how I interpreted that last line. One more thing I'll just say about the movie is, you know, I know that shipping is a big deal to a lot of people, and for a lot of people it's just something for fun, right? Like I tend not to take shipping too seriously because I know that it's just something that people do for fun a lot of the times. And I know that a lot of people have like interpreted Barbie's character as queer in some way, shape, or form because she doesn't have feelings for Ken. And also, like, some people have interpreted the gynecologist line as like her getting a vagina being kind of a trans allegory. And listen, I am never going to be the kind of person who says that there's no trans allegory in something. I mean, like, you guys know me. I'm always going to say everything is trans all the time. And I do think that the trans reading of Barbie is not inherently wrong. I do think that first and foremost, it is just sort of meant to represent the transformation into adulthood rather than a transformation into a woman specifically. It's more like growing into a woman as an adult rather than growing into a woman as like, that's your gender now. You know what I mean? And also like the idea of Barbie being a lesbian and her being attracted to Gloria and her getting together. I mean, like, yeah, it's cute and I support it and I don't think it's problematic or anything like that. But that being said, because of the movie being this coming of age story and because of Gloria being the person in Barbie's life who is teaching her about how to be a person, be a woman living in patriarchy, and since like Barbie and Sasha kind of go through these parallel arcs of growing up together, I just saw Gloria and Barbie's relationship as more of a mother-daughter maternal relationship than I did as a romantic one, even though Gloria's husband was just a nothing character, obviously. Like, he was just sort of there for a couple of one-liners. But I just saw Gloria as more of a mother figure to Barbie than anything else. So I'm not going to say that shipping them is wrong or problematic, but I do think it's a little strange. I don't know. Are people just like ignoring the coming of age aspect of the movie? Or do they just like not care and they just want to draw their cute fan art or fanfics or whatever? Like, I'm not going to judge. I'm not going to like hate on it or whatever, but I just like think it's a bit strange because this movie to me really was about growing up and becoming a woman more than romance or anything else. So I don't know. You do you. I'm not going to stop you. I'm not your parent, so do what you want. There's a lot more I could say about this movie. If you guys like want me to talk about it more, you know, leave a comment down below. There's a lot more thoughts I have about Barbie's coming of age story, about like Sasha and Gloria and Barbie and their kind of familial dynamic. What else do I want to say about the movie? I thought the performances were all amazing. Ryan Gosling and Margot Robbie, in my opinion, really carried the film. Ryan Gosling is like the only celebrity you'll ever catch me standing. Okay, so like, forgive me. He's literally the only one. I'm sorry. He's just so beautiful and so talented and I love him. Okay. Like I mentioned at the top of the video too, this is kind of an experimental format for me. And I don't really know if I want to make these styles of videos going forward, but I watch a lot of videos that are kind of in this style. So I figured I might as well give it a try. If you like it or if you want to see more stuff like this, let me know down in the comments below. I have so many videos that I'm working on right now, but I only really have a little bit of time during the week to sit down and like write scripts, and I have all this other stuff going on, and so it makes it really difficult. And then I feel really guilty that I'm like not uploading to the channel, and I feel like, oh gosh, I want to be making videos, but I don't have the time to make videos as polished as I would like to be. So I figured I might as well experiment a little bit and try with this sort of format. So yeah, please just let me know down below if you like this sort of thing, if you want to see more of it, if you don't really care for it and want to see stuff that's a little bit more polished. Just be respectful about it. Let me know. In case you didn't know as well, I do also have a Substack blog. I've been kind of posting there every so often as well too, when I don't feel like doing a full polished video essay type of analysis. So I'll leave a link in the description. Go check it out. Subscribe. It would really mean a lot to me. Thanks so much. Join the Discord. Ring the bell. I do live streams. I've been streaming Zelda and other games and stuff like that too. So if you want to hang out with me while we run around Hyrule, yeah, just subscribe, hit the bell. But anyway, that being said, I feel like I've said everything I want to say. This was kind of my rough, messy, hot take. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up for now. I've been rambling on way too long. Love you and appreciate you. Stay safe and take care.